The elections of 2024 have rumbled on and have now reached the halfway stage. 3 rounds done, 4 to go. Half the country has voted, and some trends are being picked up by analysts and psephologists, but there's also plenty of speculation amidst jittery markets, local anti-incumbency, and of course the Modi factor. But is there a central campaign theme that's emerged in the last month? From Kashmir to Kanyakumari, what are the messages that have stood out in the election campaign so far? And how do the two parties see their position at the halfway mark? We're joined on the political rumble to answer all those questions. Two very special guests, Dr. Shashi Tharoor of the Congress Party, its MP candidate from Thiruvananthapuram and 3-time MP, and Swapan Das Gupta, former Rajya Sabha MP of the Bharatiya Janata Party and part of its intellectual cell. So two clear voices are joining us here on the show. We've spoken to them separately, and we're going to raise the questions that matter as we enter the halfway mark of the battle for 2024. I first spoke to Dr. Shashi Tharoor. Dr. Tharoor, what, according to you, is the central narrative of this 2024 election campaign so far? There's a sense that we haven't been able to pick up a dominant theme at the moment. At times there's talk that the Congress started off about caste census, now the BJP playing Hindu-Muslim politics, Ram on one side, Rozgar on the other. Is there a central theme, according to you, of this campaign?
Well, I would say that what has happened, Rajdeep, is that the BJP, which has specialized in setting the agenda of every election, national or state, for the last 10 years, has suddenly lost control of the narrative. And what you're seeing is their attempts to move away from economic issues, where their failure has been spectacular, and from the alternative narrative of 2019, which was the national security narrative, which has also been a failure on the Chinese border. They decided they were going to go with the Hindutva narrative, centering the campaign around the Ram Mandir and Ayodhya. And that fell flat, to their own surprise, because that was no longer enough. And as the India bloc came up with a series of issues centered around the well-being of the voter, the Nyay concept, the 5 principles of collective social justice, suddenly you actually had an alternative narrative that was commanding the space, which is, let this election, folks, be about you, the voter, about your well-being, about your life. And because the BJP didn't have an answer to that, the Prime Minister, the Home Minister, and other campaigners doubled down upon the Hindutva narrative and went into this extraordinary paroxysm of inflammatory rhetoric on Hindu-Muslim issues, which I believe has been a sign of their desperation. But they've not been able to drag the election narrative back into that. The rest of us are simply, I must say, recoiling in revulsion at the kind of language we're hearing from no less an eminence than our Prime Minister, and we are focusing on what really matters to the voter. So my answer is, the short answer is, what matters in terms of a narrative today is, what does this election mean to you, the voter? And if it means a quest for social justice, we have the answers to that. If it means frustration about unemployment because you voted for Mr. Modi 10 years ago and he still hasn't been able to deliver you a job, then we have the answers for that. If it's frustrations about the fact that your income has dropped in the last 10 years, as 80% of Indians have, then we have the answers for that. And if indeed it is about the fundamental question of your finally asking yourselves, what has the Modi government done for you, other than give you wonderful rhetoric about Hindutva, and you can't find a good answer, then either you vote for us or you stay at home, and we're seeing examples of both in the first 3 phases. I think this is going to be a game-changing election, and the lack of a narrative, as you suggest, is going to lead to the day when the only narrative that matters is the exit of this government.
You know, you're saying the narrative that the opposition has tried to put forward is the narrative of you, of looking at individuals, making it about individuals and they're getting nyay or justice. But the opposition is also being accused of playing identity politics, Dr. Tharoor. If the BJP is accused of playing Hindutva politics, They are accusing the opposition of trying, certainly the Congress and Rahul Gandhi, of playing the politics of caste and identity, of suggesting Samvidhan or the Constitution khatre mein hai, is in danger. If the BJP gets 400 seats, your reservations will go away. So the opposition also is accused in a way of playing identity politics of their own and the politics of fear as well to an extent.
I don't buy that. I mean, frankly, all that Rahul Gandhi has said on the whole question of the caste census is, don't we need to understand what the picture is really within the country? I mean, ultimately, let's face it, every state and every central government institution does offer benefits or withhold benefits on the basis of your caste affiliation. That's a reality we can't get away from, and that's been the reality for many decades already. In those circumstances, surely knowing what exactly the picture is an innocuous requirement. All he's saying is, let's take a look. I mean, the word X-ray has been distorted by our critics. The fact is, well, what he means is an X-ray shows you what the picture is inside your body. An X-ray of society will show you what the picture is inside your society. All he's talking about is, let's get a proper diagnosis. We haven't come up with a prescription yet. Depending on what the findings are, there will be a discussion in the nation, and only then will we even be in a position to do anything about that. But right now, all we've said about caste is, let's know what the reality is. Who can object to that?
But the prescription, Dr. Tharoor, many believe that the Congress subtly or not so subtly is offering, according to the government, is redistribution of wealth. And this has raised concerns in certain quarters that the Congress, rather than rewarding wealth creators and the middle class, is talking now of redistribution of wealth. That's a theme that the Prime Minister has picked up on.
But Rajdeep, we haven't said that. We haven't said that. You know, our critics cannot put words into our mouth.
Yes.
No, our critics cannot define for us what we stand for. The Congress Party manifesto is what we're running on, what we stand behind. I was a member of the manifesto committee, and I'm astonished by the caricaturing of that manifesto we've seen coming out of the BJP. Number one, they claim it was written by the Muslim League. The word Muslim doesn't even feature in the manifesto. Second, it talks about redistribution, they claim. The word redistribution doesn't figure in the manifesto. We've in fact talked about a stable, predictable tax system that will actually allow entrepreneurs to flourish in our society. So this kind of mischaracterization of what the Congress stands for or intends to do is part of the typical negative politics we have long associated with the BJP. And I'm disappointed that someone like you, Rajdeep, would fall prey to allowing their mischaracterizations to define your questions to us. Ask us about what we have actually said, what we have actually published in the manifesto, and we'll be very happy to answer that.
Dr. Tharoor, I have gone through your manifesto in some detail, and the question therefore still remains. Is the Congress still in a position to offer a totally different vision to what the Modi government is offering? And therefore, if I may ask you this, so that let's get this absolutely clear. You are saying it's a completely different vision to the Modi vision, but what are those three things, according to you, that you believe make your vision stand out, and which, according to you, in this campaign have become your three calling cards, if I may call them that?
First of all, it's justice. I mean, this has been a problem for the BJP right along with us, going back to the 2004 election when they grandly proclaimed India shining without ever asking the question who India was shining for. We are a party that actually cares about those who've been left behind, those who are marginalized, those who've been excluded. And that's the first major difference between us. We stand for an India that will actually give people opportunities who haven't had them during 10 years of Modi rule. Second, we stand for inclusion, they stand for exclusion. And that means inclusion of all, people of all religious and other community identifications, all castes, all languages, all regions of our country. The BJP stands for Hindi, Hindutva, Hindustan, and the recent rhetoric of the BJP leadership has explicitly pointed at excluding one community from the benefits of Indianness, and that is the Muslim community, who've been demonized as infiltrators, who've been demonized as people who don't have the same rights as Hindus in this country. So that's the second major difference. The third major difference, very frankly, is one of diversity, both political diversity in the composition of the India bloc and the diversity in terms of the kind of representation you see across the India Alliance, the India Bloc, as well as the diversity we celebrate within our parties. We really want to mirror India as India is, or Bharat as Bharat is. We are not interested in a partial, narrow-minded, exclusionary version of the country that Mr. Modi embodies and articulates. We don't disagree that welfare is essential. We will probably do some things differently. You've seen from our specific suggestions, things like the Mahalakshmi program and so on. And one final difference, though you only asked for three, is that we, unlike Mr. Modi, are committed to rolling back many of his anti-people decisions, pronouncements, and laws. We will, for example, we're committed to abolishing the Agniveer scheme, which is destroying the professionalism of our army. We are committed to not making it possible, for example, to persist with the kind of amendments to the UAPA that allows the government to lock up people without trial, without charge, and without bail, which is completely inhumane and antithetical to the spirit of democracy. If you have a problem with somebody, by all means, arrest them temporarily, but produce them before a court and charge them before a court. Mr. Modi's government no longer permits that, having amended UAPA to lock up people without charge. We will also ensure that things like Citizenship Amendment Act, which at the moment has introduced religion into the notion of citizenship, we will ensure that Indian citizenship has nothing to do with religion. These are the kinds of changes that make us a very different government from what Mr. Modi has led in the last 10 years.
And yet, during the campaign, Dr. Tharoor, we've seen what some are calling weapons of mass distraction. And the accusation is also made, or the claim is made, that the opposition has thrown some self-goals that the government has every reason to respond and then smash out of the park. So whether it's a Sam Pitroda calling one day for a debate on inheritance tax, or remarks of which suggest some form of racial profiling, or indeed, dare I say, when you and leaders in Maharashtra, when you were in Mumbai, seem to suggest that 26/11 terror attack might have had a non-Pakistan RSS angle to it, which needed to be investigated. All of this has been used by the Modi government and the BJP to smash the ball out of the park and almost change the narrative.
No. That's again a caricature of what was actually said, and which is one of the reasons why I posted my entire remarks on the subject. Of course, the attack was perpetrated by Pakistan-directed terrorists. Of course, we know that because we are the ones who arrested the terrorists and actually put the survivors on trial. And indeed, having accumulated all the evidence, presented it to the world and executed the man. So there is no question. All the comment that was raised by the leader of the opposition in Maharashtra was about one possible case of one person having been killed by bullets that did not come from this character. They killed 166 people. The only question is about one person, one victim. So again, all this caricature, we're letting Pakistan off the hook, certainly not. We stood behind these words, and don't forget it is the UPA government that presented the case against Pakistani terror to the rest of the world and earned Pakistan the opprobrium it rightly deserved for having ordered and conducted essentially this terrorist attack on foreign soil from its soil. Whether it was done with the knowledge of the government or not is a different matter, but it was done from Pakistan. No one doubts that. No one in the UP is questioning that.
Okay.
Now, coming back to your first point, Sam Pitroda is a wonderful man living in Chicago. Why his comments should be the substance of an election in India is bizarre. And it is again a reflection of the gullibility, I'm sorry to say, of our friends in the media in allowing essential irrelevancies to become major distractions because that suits the interests of the ruling party.
You know, there are other interesting references in recent days. The reference that the Prime Minister made yesterday to Adani and Ambani, suggesting that they may be giving black money to the Congress and hence the Congress was silent at them. Rahul Gandhi has, of course, responded strongly. But does all of this surprise you? Do you see all of this as being weapons of mass distraction in an election that doesn't seem to have enthused the voters away from issues like Rozgar that you claim should have been the key to this election?
Absolutely. I think it's astonishing that it's been done. I think, first of all, it's an indication of the Prime Minister and the BJP leadership's increasing desperation. They're flailing about for things to fling at the Congress, given the fact that they clearly have read the writing on the wall. I mean, we're not the only ones who can do the calculations coming out of the first three phases and the mood of the public. They realize that their number is up. And so there's this desperate flailing about for whatever they can throw at the Congress. The examples you gave were good examples. And here's another one. I mean, it's laughable that when Rahul Gandhi has actually been attacking these particular gentlemen as having been excessively benefiting from Mr. Modi's rule, why does Mr. Modi say, why have you stopped attacking them? Mr. Rahul Gandhi has attacked them every single day during the last campaign, throughout the campaign. There's not a day that he's been unrelenting on the subject. So I think Mr. Modi, frankly, he has no longer anything sensible to say, but he keeps hogging the headlines by saying things that are not terribly sensible, and this is one of them.
But one of the things that is making the headlines is Muslim reservation. And this has pushed the opposition, some believe, on the back foot. There's a belief that somewhere the BJP has chosen to interpret your manifesto, and this is the Prime Minister as well, that the Congress, if it comes to power, will ensure in some form Muslim reservation, and thereby playing on the insecurities and fears that Hindus may have. How do you respond? Is this again somewhere where the opposition perhaps has allowed Mr. Modi to play Hindutva politics when you have the likes of Lalu Prasad speak about Muslim reservations, play on his pitch?
Rajdeep, you say you've read the manifesto. You know perfectly well there is no reference to Muslim reservation in the manifesto. I mean, the fact of the matter is, Mr. Modi is deliberately conflating an issue that the BJP had tried to flog during the last Karnataka elections with the Lok Sabha elections nationally. Now, we all very well know that in our country there are reservations both by the national government and by state governments, and that those reservations will vary. And as far as this particular Lok Sabha election is concerned, it's about the national government, and therefore it's not a set of state issues. It so happens that in 2 or 3 states, yes, state governments have at different times implemented policies under which some Muslims have been deemed to be part of the OBCs. And in those states, Muslims also are also included amongst those eligible under OBC reservations. But that is not yet a central government policy at any stage, nor has it been proposed by us in our manifesto. So again, it's a deliberate conflation by the BJP of the reality in 2 or 3 states. I think Karnataka, Tamil Nadu and Kerala have variations of this provision. And the Congress Party's national manifesto, which does not have this provision. So once again, we're talking about issues that don't exist. You know, it's an amazing issue. We published a manifesto. I was very proud to be part of the committee that prepared it. We all thought that this might be discussed by the public, and we paid much attention to it. We never expected a day would come when the only discussion would be on things we haven't said in the manifesto, but they claim we intend. I mean, this is absurd. I mean, this is almost a sort of Orwellian world that we're living in this particular election.
Let me just step back a bit, Dr. Tharoor. 2014 was seen as an election, as a vote for change. People wanted to get rid of the UPA government at the time. 2019 was seen as a vote for a kind of post-Balakot muscular leadership that the Prime Minister was seen to offer. Prime Minister Modi's supporters claim that this time voters want to vote for stability, for continuity, for more of the same. For example, continuity with 5 kg free ration per month to poor families. The government's supporters say that this is an election where the majority of people want stability and continuity, and that's the real narrative away from all the other issues that are being made talking points and headlines.
Well, because the fact is very simply, Rajdeep, that stability to achieve what? I mean, the question that I have asked Mr. Modi and his fans and his party's representatives in the last few years is, what have you done for the people who voted for you 10 years ago, expecting that you'll be delivering jobs to them when they still don't have jobs? What have you done for people whom you promised to double the income of farmers, and you have not even raised farmers' income by 10%? What have you done to justify the faith of those you said you would return 15 lakhs of black money for every Indian citizen, put them in their bank account? What have you done for them? What have you done, essentially, to make sure that the Aam Aadmi in this country is able to afford a decent standard of living and 3 square meals a day. You've imposed punitive taxes on fuel, diesel, petrol, and so on, which have driven up the prices of all other commodities. And India is a very price-sensitive nation. Even if you can say that our inflation is not high by global standards, it is high by what the Indian public can bear. So we are talking about basic issues of welfare. Stability doesn't guarantee welfare. The track record of coalition governments in India has been far better than those of one-party governments when it comes to economic growth and human well-being. And I believe that the coalition government that the India bloc is going to bring into office soon after June 4th will be able to match the record of other coalition governments in giving India better economic growth and better progress than India has seen in the last 10 years of Mr. Modi.
But Dr. Tharoor, you're saying now that the India Alliance government will come to power on June 4th. The fact is, this election has started with the BJP saying, "Ab ki baar 400 par." Even in the worst case scenario, most psephologists believe the BJP could go down to 270, 280, but still be well ahead of the India Alliance. Are you in that sense daydreaming when you say India Alliance will form a government on June 4th? I haven't heard anything from India Alliance partners to suggest how they will form a government. It's one thing to say BJP won't cross 400, but how will you form a government, especially the Congress, which has to rise from just 53 seats last time?
Look, Rajdeep, it's very simple. The fact remains that half the seats have voted so far in the first 3 phases. The other half have to vote in the remaining 4 phases. And the trends emerging from that are a certain degree of abstention or absenteeism in the BJP strongholds and an enthusiastic turnout for opposition candidates in our areas or the areas where we expected people to show up and support us. The signs we're getting point to a dramatic decline in BJP's vote. They only have a majority of 31 seats, that's 303. Every indication is that the present trends continue, and that, of course, is an if, that they're going to drop well below 240. In fact, instead of ab ki baar 400 par, it's going to be ab ki baar 300 har for the BJP. And they're going to lose at least 300 seats across the country altogether for their alliance, and they will end up somewhere south of 240 seats, at which level I think all bets are off. They may still be given an opportunity to attempt to form a government, but I don't see the BJP finding allies willing to sup with the devil, as it were, at that level. And you're likely very, very much to see the alternative India bloc coming together and some of the current fence-sitters joining us as well. I don't think any of us is suggesting that it'll be a complete sweeping wave election for us. There's no sign of a wave on either side. But I think the apathy and indifference of the BJP's core supporters is enough to demonstrate that they are the ones who have much more to fear on the 4th of June.
You know, all I can say, Dr. Tharoor, is that the BJP seems to believe very clearly that it's the Congress and opposition voters who are not coming to the polling booths, that they believe there's an inevitability to the outcome. But you're giving a completely different perspective. So what can I say? Umeed par duniya kaam hai for the opposition. You seem to live in hope, and you're certainly seemingly more hopeful than you were just a month ago.
We're very hopeful, Rajdeep, and I think the nation too will wake to a new dawn when the results are out on the 4th of June.
Shashi Tharoor, thank you very much for giving us an opposition perspective on the state of play as you see it at the halfway mark in this 2024 election.